Al Capone Does My Shirts, A Tale from Alcatraz, Chapters 6 and 7. Chapter 6, Sucker, Same Day, Sunday, January 6, 1935. I'm walking by the cell house now, row after row of dark, barred windows, all spooky quiet. What goes on in there? I know the convicts aren't allowed to talk, but how could some 300 men not make more sound? Just breathing makes noise, you know? And those windows, the cons don't sit around watching us, do they? Across the road from the cell house is a fancy mansion with flower pots on the steps and curtains in the windows. The only thing missing from this house is a lawn and a tree. That's the only tip this is Alcatraz. There's nothing but cement clear up to the door. Even so, it's strange how one side of the road is so different from the other. High society on the left, grim and grisly on the right. But somehow it seems like the perfect place for Piper. I trip going up the steps and have to brush myself off and tuck my shirt in again. I comb my hair with my hand, take a deep breath, and ring the bell. The door opens a split second later, and there is the warden rising to fill the doorway. "Young Mr. Flanagan," he says. "Yes, sir," I say. "Just making myself a cup of tea. Care to join me?" "No, sir. Yes, sir. I want to join you, but no, sir. I don't like tea." The warden nods. His eyes look me up and down. After a long minute, he gives up command of the entrance and motions me in. "My library is upstairs. The door's open. You go on ahead." I take an uncertain step forward, and I peek in the living room. The couches and chairs look perfect. Nobody's ever sat in them. It smells like ammonia, and there's opera music playing somewhere. This is not the kind of house where you can burp freely and run around in your bare feet. The warden's library is a big, dark room with heavy red drapes drawn closed, floor-to-ceiling books, the kind of official volumes with thick indexes Natalie likes. The warden comes in after me, and he closes the door. He sets his teacup on the desk, settles into a huge winged desk chair, and begins to work. "Sit down, Mr. Flanagan," he says without looking up from his ledger. He sounds annoyed, like I've flunked the first test. I sit down, only my aim is a little off, and I clunk myself on the wooden arm of the chair. Ouch, sir," I say. His face gets red. His sharp eyes seem to poke into me. He leans back in his chair, and he opens his mouth to say something. But just as he does, someone knocks on the solid oak door. "Yes," the warden calls. The latch slides open, and there is Piper. Her hair is curled, her dress is starched. She's wearing white short socks and shiny white shoes. "Piper, did you want to sit in?" the warden asks. His big face is shining. "Yes, sir," she smiles sweetly. "We'd be delighted, wouldn't we, Mr. Flanagan?" the warden asks. Yes, sir." My throat closes around the words. The warden doesn't seem to notice, beaming as he is at her. "Piper, you feel free to chime in now." "Yes, sir," Piper smiles. She doesn't look at me. When convicts first arrive on Alcatraz, I speak with them personally. Let them know what I expect. I don't usually talk to new civilians, but Piper felt I should make an exception in your case, the warden says. Oh, swell, getting the convicted felon treatment. I try to look at only the warden. Try not to notice Piper, but this seems impossible. Yes, sir, I say. I don't know what you did in Santa Monica, Mr. Flanagan, but children on Alcatraz follow the rules. Exactly, precisely, without exception. Isn't that right, Piper? Yes, sir, she says. We're a small town here, a small town with a big jail. The track record of the convicts we have includes 79 successful escapes, 19 unsuccessful escapes, and 24 escapes that were planned but not carried out. That's before these men came to Alcatraz, of course. We've made certain there will be no escapes here. But I don't fool myself. These convicts are the very best at what they do. They have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to figure out how to get out of here. These men who have been tried and convicted of the most heinous crimes imaginable. Terrible men with nothing but time on their hands. He waits for this information to sink in. All I can think about is how stupid this is. If the men are that dangerous, why have women and children been living on this island? I know my father says that in an event of a break, the warden wants the guard corps within walking distance of the cell house. And I know that Alcatraz apartments are cheap compared to the cost of apartments in San Francisco. Still, it seems like an incredibly stupid idea to me. Yes, sir, I say. I have a great deal of respect for your father, and since you're Cam's boy, I bet you have a lot to offer. I'm looking forward to getting to know you. But before that can happen, we have to make sure that we understand each other. Yes, sir, I say. We have rules here. Laws you must obey, or you could endanger yourself and everyone else on this island. Rule number 1, there is no contact with the convicts. You see them on work detail down at the dock. On occasion, they'll help a family move furniture or paint their quarters. He pulls open the curtains, and there is the cell house. The little hairs on my neck stand up at the sight of how close it is. But his voice goes low and hard. They are accompanied by a guard at all times. You may not, under any circumstances, approach them or speak to them. Women are not to wear bathing suits, shorts, or any attire that is anything but completely modest. Undergarments are not to be sent out with the laundry. He turns to Piper. Cover your ears, young lady, he beckons with his finger. I walk up close and he whispers, some of these convicts have not seen a woman in 10 or 15 years. You're old enough to understand what that means, Mr. Flanagan. Yes, sir, I say, almost running back to my chair. You can never trust a con. Nobody came here for singing too loud in church. Do you know what the word conniving means? Sneaky? Tricky, I say? That's right. Remember that, Mr. Flanagan. Conniving. Men with no sense of right and wrong. Oh, swell. Number 2. Do not enter an area that is fenced off. Number 3. No visitors unless you've made your request in writing 1 week prior to the visiting day. Number 4. Do not speak to any outsiders about what goes on here. Don't go shooting your mouth off about Al Capone. You say his name and hordes of reporters come crawling out of the woodwork, ready to write stories full of foolish lies, dangerous lies. Know anything about Capone, Mr. Flanagan? He's a gangster from Chicago. Killed a lot of people on Valentine's Day? Al Capone was, some people say is, the most powerful underworld figure in the country. Here on Alcatraz, he's a number like every other con. The point of this prison is to keep these showy criminals out of the limelight. If I find out you're running your mouth about Capone, I'll ship you back to where you came from so fast it will make your head spin. Would you please, I want to say, but then I think about my dad and how hard he's working so we can stay here. The warden's eyes flicker. He seems to sense his words haven't had the desired effect. I know you're going to want to give that sister of yours a chance at school. Please, sir, don't bring her into this, I say, looking down at the carpet. I can feel the heat of his intense blue eyes watching me. Fair enough, he nods. Number 5, you must walk through the metal detectors upon entering and leaving the island. No dogs, cats, or pets of any kind. No play guns, ropes, metal pipes, or anything that could be used as a weapon. No old hangers or nails or anything made of metal or glass goes out with your trash. These convicts can fashion weapons out of anything. Yes, sir, I say, and the hairs of my arm are so keen I could pick up a radio signal with them. Now, my daughter tells me she's introduced you to the other children here. He nods to Piper. Your daughter hasn't done boo, far as I can tell. She's a bald-faced liar, I want to yell. Is there anything I missed, sweetheart? The school projects? Oh, yes. Piper is a straight-A student, he says, pretending to whisper. Oh, Daddy, Piper blushes. Her mother and I are so proud of her. But sometimes keeping track of all the projects she has going is a challenge for her. Annie and Jimmy go to St. Bridget's, so you'll be the only other Alcatraz child attending Marina School with Piper. She often needs help carrying her projects and whatnot to school. We're hoping, as a favor to us, you might be willing to help her out. Emergency alert, emergency alert. Moose Flanagan played for a sucker right before his very eyes. Yes, sir. My voice squeaks high like a rodent's. I glance sideways at Piper. The warden's smile is kind. If you have any problems at all, my door is always opened. Yes, sir. That's it. Welcome to Alcatraz. You can see yourself out. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, I say. Bye, Moose. See you at school tomorrow, Piper waves like she is the sweetest girl next door. For a second, I almost believe her. That's how good she is. And then I realize she is the girl next door. The girl next door to Al Capone. Chapter 7. Big for 7th grade. Monday, January 7th, 1935. Now I get to walk to school where I don't know anyone. Correction. I don't know anyone except a piece of work named Piper. One enemy, the rest strangers. This is not good, for cripe's sake. Plus, it's mid-year, so everybody has made all the friends they already want. No one will need a friend except me. Was this how Natalie felt on the way to Esther P. Marinoff's school? Maybe some big ladies will come along and drag me inside, kicking and screaming too. Sometimes it seems easier to be Natalie. People force her to do stuff. I have to force myself. I try to remember how I would have walked into a new class at home. I guess that's the problem right there. At home, I never would have thought about how to walk into a stupid room. I would have just done it. I take a deep breath and I shove open the door. Everyone is looking up at the teacher, including Piper. 3rd row, 2nd seat. The teacher is writing on the chalkboard in perfect Palmer method handwriting. I spot an empty seat and I wonder if I can get away with just sitting down like I've been here all year. The teacher turns around. She's got black hair and a tight, white little face, as if her skin's a size too small. "And you are?" she asks. "Matthew Flanagan, but everyone calls me Moose." "I'm Miss Bimp," she says, looking on her roll sheet. Her pencil moves down the list. "Excuse me, Mr. Flanagan, but I don't see your name here. Are you certain you have the right class? 7th grade, advanced English?" "Yes, ma'am," I say. She squints at me. "Big for 7th grade, aren't you, Mr. Flanagan?" "Yes, ma'am." Miss Bimp clears her throat. She puts her hand to her mouth and she speaks behind it. "This wouldn't be your 2nd time round in 7th grade, would it?" Piper laughs first, then the whole class busts up. My face burns. My ears are like 2 heaters attached to my head. "No, ma'am," I say. "That's enough, class. All right, fine. Mr. Flanagan, take a seat there in the back so you don't block anyone's view of the board. This week, we're continuing our unit on oral reports. I'd like you to each to write an outline for a 2-minute speech. Remember, beginning, middle, end. Keep it short. Moose, have you written outlines before?" "Yes, ma'am," I say. "Excellent." Her stiff mouth flips up. This is supposed to be a smile. It looks like it hurts. The topic for today's speech is, she writes on the board, "What I did over Christmas vacation." I'll give you 15 minutes, then we'll start right here. She raps her knuckles on my row. That just figures, doesn't it? I take out my notebook. It seems like I've hardly started scribbling ideas when Miss Bimp booms, "Pens down! Listen up! Scout, McIlroy, you're first." Scout has the kind of hair that grows up instead of down. He has a friendly smile, and everything he does quickly. I don't pay much attention to what he says, but when he walks back to his seat, he's got a baseball glove under his desk. Within seconds, I have dipped my pen into my inkwell. Do you play ball? I write. The note travels up the row to Scout. Even Piper passes it with no comment. After Scout reads it, he turns around and he smiles at me. Then his head ducks down and he writes his response. Southfield, it says, when it comes back. After school today. We need players, Scout. His handwriting is big and wild. It takes up the whole backside. I can't believe my luck. I'm about to write. What position do you play? When I see Piper walk up the aisle. She waits while Scout moves his books out of the way. Even after Scout's done moving them, she still waits like he hasn't moved them far enough, although he's clearly has. Scout pushes the last little corner in and she sails past. In front of the room, Piper still waits like she's not going to open her mouth until she has every single person's eyes on her. She doesn't have an apron on either, which wouldn't be strange except every other girl in class does. I sang a solo for our convicts on Alcatraz. I sang Silent Night for Al Capone, Machine Gun Kelly, Roy Gardner, and the others. There were tryouts in early December, and I was given the only solo spot. We walked around the outside of the cell house caroling, so I didn't actually see Capone this time, but I'm almost sure I heard him call out, "Sweet as a songbird." No kidding, a fat kid says. The Al Capone? Piper nods. The very same. How do you know it was him? I recognized his voice. You gotta be kidding me, another kid mutters. Moose Flanagan lives on Alcatraz too. Piper smiles at me like we're best friends. Maybe he can tell you more. What the heck was that? Take the little policewoman off Alcatraz and she runs her mouth like crazy. Capone this, Capone that. Exactly what the warden said never to do. And now, if I don't talk about Alcatraz, I'll look like a chump. If I do, she'll tell Daddy on me. Score one for Daddy's little miss. The girl who comes after Piper is up in the front now, but everybody is busy talking. No one notices. Miss Bimp wraps her pointer stick so hard she practically breaks it before the people settle down. The girl's turn goes lickety-split, and so does the next guy's. I'm up next. I look out at the strange faces. My arms feel too long. I try crossing them, putting my hand in my pockets, holding one arm with the other. My pants are too tight in the waist and in the crotch too. How come I never noticed this before? My dad is the electrician on Alcatraz. I moved there, here, from Santa Monica. And the most exciting thing that happened to me this vacation was that my mom didn't feel like cooking because our pans were still packed. So my dad brought home a plate of roast chicken, potatoes, and cooked carrots. I paused for a minute. This wasn't what I wrote in my outline. I'm going to freeform now. From the cell house kitchen. It was cooked by a kidnapper, a two-time murderer, and a postal robber too. Wow, somebody says. Were you scared? No, I make a scoffing noise like a little the silliest thing I've ever heard. The truth is, I was terrified. For the first time in my whole life, I skipped supper. Told my parents I had a stomach ache, which has never stopped me from eating before. He could have been killed, Piper says in a stage voice, shaking her head as if it's a wonder I'm here to tell the story. They tried to poison you? A girl with chipmunk cheeks asked. No, but they could have. Any of us could be poisoned at any time, Piper agrees. Is that all, Mr. Flanagan? Miss Bimp cuts in, tapping her pencil on the desk. Yes, ma'am, I say. When I get back to my seat, I trip on the girl's foot and I knock my inkwell over. Ink seeps through the cracks and drips on my leg. I spend the rest of class trying to clean it up. After the bell rings, I catch up with Piper in the hall outside. I thought we weren't supposed to talk about Alcatraz, I say. Why did you then? Piper asks, shifting her books to her other arm. I open my mouth to answer, but no words come out. Why did I, anyway? Because you did, I finally spit out. Because I did? Isn't that the sweetest thing? Piper smiles at me. I hurry to keep up with her. Piper is a good 6 inches shorter than I am, but walks faster. How can this be? She stops and looks at my pants. I look down at myself and see a big black ink blotch, the shape of Florida, uncomfortably close to my fly. So, are you going to help me with my project or not? She asks. What project? Didn't I tell you? We're going to sell the Alcatraz laundry service to kids at school. You know, get your clothes cleaned by famous Alcatraz convicts, Al Capone, Machine Gun Kelly, and Roy Gardner. We'll charge 5 cents a shirt. No IOUs. Money will be split 4 ways. Jimmy and Annie will help us put the laundry through in their families' bags, so they each get a cut, plus you and I. You're going to sell the Alcatraz laundry service? Why? I ask. I just told you why. Money. Piper starts walking again. Does your dad know about this? She snorts. Not hardly, she says, taking off again. Hey! I hurry after her as she ducks in the doorway. I didn't say. Get out of here, you big baboon. This is the girls' bathroom, a blonde with an angry pop-out eyes shouts. 3 girls are putting on lipstick. Another is closing the stall door. All the way to my next class, I hear the sound of Piper's laugh. It plays over and over in my head. I'm going to stop